You speak the planets each and every day. And on Thursday, Mars in Libra squares Thor, Jupiter in Cancer. Conflicts coming up in relationships that are pushing you to reflect upon your past. You're not being punished by these conflicts. These conflicts are coming up to help you. To help you recognize the patterns that have been set in your life so that you can rewire them through doing the work within your unconscious. By recognizing the nature of these patterns, the origins of these patterns, they stem from childhood trauma, familial trauma, the trauma of life on earth and mankind. You are here to heal that trauma. You want to save the world? You want to help the world? Save and help yourself. Welcome to the Weekly Transit, your guide to understanding the current planetary and astral alignments. Together, we'll explore how to harness these cosmic frequencies, empowering you to reach your highest potential as you navigate the days ahead. I'm your host, Scott Tajarian. Welcome to the Weekly Transit. This is the week of September 1st to the 7th, where we will be covering 7 transits highlighted by 4 transits. 4 of the 7 transits are highlights. Like, this is a big week. We've got Saturn retrograding back into Pisces, Mercury transiting into Virgo, Uranus beginning its retrograde transit in Gemini, and then the climax of the week is the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. I want to thank you for being here, for bringing me into your life. I hope to be supporting you, guiding and empowering you through the week. And of course, if you need any personal guidance and support, I encourage you to contact me for a reading at theweeklytransit.com. It is my honor and privilege to be here to support you. So the first transit of the week begins with Saturn retrograde into Pisces. This happens on Monday, September 1st. Saturn began its retrograde or transited into its retrograde shadow back on April 5th. That was in Pisces when it began its retrograde transit at 25 degrees Pisces. It began its retrograde on July 12th at 1 degree and 56 minutes in Aries. It transits back into Pisces on September 1st. The retrograde ends on November 27th. So on November 27th, Saturn will be exactly where it was on April 5th. And then March 2nd of next year is when Saturn transits out of its retrograde shadow. That's when Saturn transits out of its retrograde shadow. So, Saturn will be in the same spot on March 2nd that it was on July 12th. So I just give you these dates for clues on, just kind of tracking how everything, it may be something, what was going on in your life back on, or think about, actually, what you want to be thinking about is what was going on in your life back around when Saturn transited into Aries, or right before it transited into Aries. Saturn transited into Aries on May 24th. So what was happening in your life in May, the first 2-3 weeks of May? That's going to give you maybe some insight into what could be occurring for you when Saturn transits back into Pisces. So think about like from April 5th, what was going on from April 5th to May 24th in your life? What was happening between April 5th and May 24th in your life? This is a revisitation of that frequency beginning today, or whatever day you're listening. It's September 1st, 2025. And then Saturn's going to be transiting through Pisces. It moves back into Aries. That's going to be next year. It moves back in on exactly, let me give you the date here. That's going to be February. Wow, I always love this. It's going to be on February 13th, so the day before Valentine's Day. So from September 1st to February 13th, Saturn is going to be moving across the same stretch of sky that it was moving between April 5th and May 24th of 2025. So what does this all mean? Well, that's why I ask you to think back and reflect on what was happening in your life April 5th to May 24th, because there's going to be a revisitation of that energetic frequency from September 1st to February 13th. But what it means in terms of the language of astrology is Saturn is the god of wealth and time, the planet of restriction, responsibility, hard work, achievement, and authority. Pisces is the mutable water sign symbolized by the fish and ruled by Jupiter, the god of thunder, lord of justice, the planet of expansion, and Neptune, the god of fresh water and the sea, the planet of illusion, deception, compassion, intuition. So, the planet of restriction in the sign of dreams. When I think of Pisces, I think of not only dreams, but the unconscious. Dreams occur in your unconscious when you are asleep or when your mind is just drifting off. You know, for me, it often happens when I'm driving in the car and I'm going someplace that I go regularly, frequently. I end up at the place and I'm like, oh, how did I get here? Because my mind is just on autopilot and I'm just kind of drifting through. So where's it going during that period? Where's it going? Where's your mind drifting to? The unconscious is where we keep all of our psychological baggage that we don't want to deal with. The guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame. So as we're exploring that, as we are experiencing the thoughts that arise sort of uncontrollably, what are those thoughts? What are those thoughts that are happening in your mind that are just happening to come up? Are you somebody who remembers your dreams? You know, I find that people that were born with Saturn in Pisces or Saturn in the 12th house, which is associated with the 12th sign, which is Pisces, they often have a hard time dreaming because Saturn is the planet of work and responsibility. So having the planet of work and responsibility in the sign of dreams or the house of dreams, the house of the unconscious, means that you need to work at accessing your unconscious. But when you do the work, you receive the reward. When you do the work, you receive the reward. So sometimes the work can be, if you can't remember your dreams, focus on what's going on when your mind is drifting, when you're not controlling your thoughts, when you're meditating, let's say, when you're doing something sort of mundane. What's going on there? What's coming up for you? When thoughts of guilt shame, regret, and blame arise, the work here is showing yourself compassion. Saturn in Pisces is saying, take responsibility to forgive yourself. Take responsibility to be compassionate for the experiences that you've had. Take responsibility for the experiences that you've had in showing yourself compassion. Take responsibility in being empathetic to others. These thoughts are perhaps causing suffering, internal mental anguish. You're meant to learn from this. You're not meant to receive eternal punishment and damnation. You're meant to grow and learn from the suffering that you've experienced, the regrets that you have, the shame that you feel. So when you go to bed at night, set the intention, show me what I need to know. And even if you don't remember your dreams, something's happening in there. So be intentional about what you desire to occur in your unconscious, because your unconscious is affecting your reality. The program that is running beneath the surface of your mind is reflecting your reality. So if you are upset at your reality, there's something within your unconscious that needs forgiveness. This is not easy. It's work. Saturn requires work. So what does that mean to you to do the work required to show yourself compassion for the guilt, shame, regret, and blame that you're experiencing within your psyche? This work is so important. From September 1st to February 13th, because once Saturn transits back into Aries on February 13th, it's not coming back to Pisces until April 16th, 2052. So this is setting the tone for the next 27 and a half years, 26 and a half years, 26 and a half years. It's setting the tone for the next 26 and a half years. Now, of course, there'll be other transits that come and go that will transit through Pisces, and there'll be opportunities to do work with the unconscious, but this is still a special opportunity. In what ways are you being pushed? What is rising to the surface of your mind that is uncomfortable to you? Are you paying attention to your thoughts? Or are you ignoring them? What thoughts are you pushing beneath the surface of your mind? What thoughts are you numbing with drugs and alcohol, with any other form of escapism? You're being called to sit with the discomfort here, to be in the discomfort, to learn to love the discomfort, because the discomfort is a part of you. running from the discomfort, hiding from the discomfort, will only intensify the discomfort. The suffering will not go away until you begin to acknowledge it. Acknowledge it. Show it compassion. Show those who are attached to the suffering empathy. And through doing that work, you will transmute the energy like the movement of a cloud. We're going to be talking about the full moon lunar eclipse later on in the show. But in a couple weeks here on September 21st, that new moon solar eclipse in Virgo is going to be opposing Saturn in Pisces. There's a lot of work to be done in the unconscious right now. You're being given a lot of support to do this work. Take advantage of it by engaging in those uncomfortable spaces within the corner of your mind rather than running and escaping from them. The second transit of the week, Mercury in Virgo. Mercury, the messenger of the gods, guide of souls to the underworld, the planet of consciousness, communication, and coordination, the god of merchants and thieves. Returns to its home in the mutable earth sign, symbolized by the Virgin and ruled by Mercury, Virgo. September 2nd to the 18th, that's when Mercury transits through Virgo. It's a quick trip, and it's a very quick trip compared to the time that Mercury has spent in Virgo the last couple of years, because the last couple of years, Mercury has been retrograde in Virgo. In 2024, Mercury transited through the first 4 degrees of Virgo between July 25th and August 14th. And then it transited through the entire sign of Virgo between September 8th to the 26th. In 2023, Mercury transited through Virgo from July 28th to October 4th. That's an extremely long period. The end of July, all of August, all of September, and the beginning of October. It's over 2 months. You can see, this trip is going to be 16 days. Just barely over 2 weeks. In 2022, Mercury had 2 transits in Virgo. The first was August 3rd to the 25th, and then the second was September 23rd to October 10th, due to the retrograde. And then in 2021, Mercury transited Virgo August 11th to the 29th. Think back to those dates for clues on what could be in store for you this time around as Mercury transits through the sign that it rules. But when Mercury transits through Virgo, it brings a greater attention to detail. It's helping you focus your attention on the things that maybe you were missing before. It's honing your focus. The sun is also in Virgo, which we'll be talking about at the end of the episode in relation to the full moon in Pisces. But Mercury in Virgo is urging you to pay attention to what you're putting into your mind. How is it affecting your body? Paying attention to what you're putting into your body. How is it affecting your mind? As you're keying in on the details, what you're being asked to do is to remove whatever is there in the clutter of your mind, in the clutter of your home, in the clutter of your schedule that is no longer serving you. Release it. Clear the space. Clear the physical space, clear the mental space. Clear the mental space, clear the physical space. Clear the calendar. Virgo rules the intestines, and the intestines are that part of the body that eliminates whatever's in the body that no longer serves the body. So what exists in your daily reality that needs to be eliminated because it's no longer serving you? If you were born with key astrological points or planets in Gemini or Sagittarius, that mental or physical clutter may be coming up in an uncomfortable way. Perhaps your schedule feels a little bit cluttered. Perhaps you're finding trouble getting from here to there to do this or that. It all depends on when Mercury in Virgo is squaring whatever planets you have in Gemini or Sagittarius. I think of those who were born between 1995 and 2008 were born with Pluto in Sagittarius. This is the generation of optimism. But when things don't go their way, they want to burn it all down. Virgo may throw some light on their perspective of things. Their big ideas may be brought crashing into the ground. If you were born between 1995 and 2008, during this period, depending exactly when you were born, Virgo is going to be squaring your Pluto, which means that you may need to crunch those numbers a little bit more than you would like to. There may be aspects of your big plan that aren't adding up. And Virgo says, well, you got to connect the dots. And you didn't do that. Faith comes through service to others. And service to others, the foundation of service to others comes through the way that you take care of yourself, the way that you take care of your health, your body. The more you take care of yourself, the better you take care of yourself, the more you'll be able to support those around you. And that's what Virgo and Mercury wants. It wants you to fine-tune so that you can live life more efficiently. You got 16 days to get it in order. The third transit of the week, continuing with Mercury in Virgo, creates that tension as it transits into Virgo. It squares off with Uranus in Gemini. Uranus is the primordial sky god, the planet of revolution, rebellion, innovation, independence, and the unexpected. Gemini is the mutable air sign, so mutable like Virgo, but air rather than earth, symbolized by the twins, and like Virgo, ruled by Gemini. So Gemini is the extroverted expression of Mercury. Virgo is the introverted expression of Mercury. Virgo is about going, what is happening in your mind. Virgo's about what's going on in your mind, whereas Gemini is Mercury sharing your thoughts. This aspect with Mercury in Virgo squaring Uranus in Gemini is quick because Mercury is moving quickly. September 2nd to the 3rd, Tuesday to Wednesday, with the exact square occurring on Wednesday, September 3rd. This is rattling your mind. Maybe you're seeing things from a very unique perspective. Something's come up from out of nowhere and it's surprised you. Be open to listening. Be open to receiving new information. That new information is perhaps giving you a different perspective that is helping you see things that you'd been missing. Lean into the tension here rather than run from it. The tension is waking you up, and you need to be awake. The fourth transit of the week, Jupiter, God of thunder, Lord of justice, the planet of luck and expansion, transiting through Cancer, the cardinal water sign symbolized by the crab and ruled by the moon, forming a supportive trine with the North Node retrograde in Pisces. The North Node is the karmic pathway of the soul or soul's purpose. Pisces is the mutable water sign symbolized by the fish. We know this from talking about it earlier with Saturn transiting through Pisces. So it's not just Saturn in Pisces, it's also the North Node in Pisces, which has been transiting through Pisces since the beginning of the year. Since January 11th. This is a special aspect, a supportive aspect. Jupiter is the planetary ruler of Pisces, so it's transiting through Cancer, but it's aligning with the North Node in Pisces. This is occurring at 18 degrees, August 23rd to September 9th, Saturday to Tuesday, with the exact trine occurring on Wednesday, September 3rd. So the same day that Mercury in Virgo squares Uranus in Gemini is the same day that Jupiter in Cancer forms an exact trine with the North Node retrograde in Pisces. The difference is the transit between Mercury and Uranus is quick. It's 2 days. The transit between Jupiter and the North Node lasts from August 23rd to September 9th. It's over 2 weeks. But maybe this day on Wednesday is Woden's day. Woden is the Old Norse god associated with the Roman god Mercury, Miraculous. This is the day of Mercury, when Mercury is aligning with Uranus, Jupiter aligning with the North Node. So with Mercury in Virgo squaring Uranus in Gemini, you're getting that shocking idea, that surprise comes up. It's like, whoa, where is this happening? What just happened here? What that does is it wakes you up, and it's waking you up to something that exists within your unconscious that you need to be conscious of. It's ready to come to the surface. It's ready to be forgiven. Jupiter in Cancer is expanding your perspective of the past, whether it's your childhood, your ancestry, your bloodline. And the connection to the North Node in Pisces is saying, how has this affected, how has my past affected my unconscious? And not just my past, but the past of my family, my ancestry, and the collective consciousness. We are all reflecting each other. We're not here living in a box, separate from one another. We're all connected. This Jupiter in Cancer trying the North Node in Pisces is reminding us of that we are all connected. The square between Mercury and Uranus is waking us up. And once we're awake, what do you see? What is happening in your life right now? And how is that reflected from your past? What are you experiencing in your life that maybe your parents experienced or your ancestors? The experiences that you're having in your life right now are akin to the experiences you've had previous to this. It may not be exactly the same, but they are related. So whatever wake up is occurring on Wednesday is urging you to look deeper. It's like if a nightmare wakes you up. You have a bad dream and you wake up. What? What do you do then? You just pop open your phone and start scrolling? No. You've got to... What was that? What happened? Oh my God. I was so afraid. What was going on there? How does that relate to my reality? How does that relate to my past, my history, my family? That's what you're being called to do. So whether you're actually waking up from a literal nightmare or something shocking is occurring in your waking reality, either way, you're being called to go deeper, to look within, to really reflect at what's at the root of what just came up. And when you delve to the root, love it, show it compassion, so you can forgive yourself and move forward. Because Saturn in Pisces is not just about taking responsibility. It's not just about taking responsibility for doing the work and reflecting upon the guilt, the shame, the regret, the blame that exists within you. It's also about taking responsibility to manifest your dreams. But you can't manifest your dreams if you're weighed down by guilt, shame, regret, and blame. When you're able to forgive yourself and show yourself compassion, that's when the universe says, they're ready for something new. God says, you're ready for something new. You sat with the pain and suffering. You're ready for a new experience. So at the other side of the suffering is turning that nightmare into a dream come true. The fifth transit of the week involves Jupiter again, squared by Mars in Libra. Mars is the god of war, the planet of action, aggression, and conflict, courage, authenticity, transiting through the cardinal air sign symbolized by the scales and ruled by Venus, the goddess of love, Libra. This tension between Mars in Libra and Jupiter in Cancer is maybe bringing up some conflicts in your relationships. This is also a bit of a longer transit. It's lasting from Sunday, August 31st to Saturday, September 6th, with the exact square occurring on Thursday, September 4th, Thor's Day. Thor is the Old Norse god associated with the Roman god Jupiter. Jueves, Júpiter, for my Spanish friends. You see the connection between the days of the week and the planets? It's right there in front of your face. These are words that you have literally used every single day that you've been speaking. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Moon Day, Tuesday, Tur, Mars, Martes, Wednesday, Wednesday, Miércoles, Mercurio, Jueves, Júpiter, Thursday, Frig, Friday, Viernes, Venus, Saturn Day. It's right here in front of your face. You speak the planets each and every day. And on Thursday, Mars in Libra squares Thor, Jupiter in Cancer. Conflicts coming up in relationships that are pushing you to reflect upon your past. You're not being punished by these conflicts. These conflicts are coming up to help you. To help you recognize the patterns that have been set in your life so that you can rewire them through doing the work within your unconscious. By recognizing the nature of these patterns, the origins of these patterns, they stem from childhood trauma, familial trauma, the trauma of life on earth, and mankind. You are here to heal that trauma. You want to save the world? You want to help the world? Save and help yourself. So you're being encouraged in the latter part of this week to not ignore the conflicts that are coming up in your relationships, but to rather engage. And as you engage, reflect upon the origin of these conflicts, not just how the conflict started with you and whoever the conflict is with that you're in relationship with, your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, your lover, your friend, your business partner. This conflict that I'm having with fill in the blank is just like the conflict that I had with my mother. Just like the conflict that I still have with my father. Or just like the conflict that I had when I was in college with this one friend, and it happened in high school with this other friend, and it happened in elementary school, and I go all the way back, and it happened with dad. It happened with mom. This is giving you the courage to go back in time to that first time you can remember having this sort of conflict, and to be there for your younger self. To be kind, caring, and nurturing to yourself in a way that others weren't to you in that moment but should have been. You owe it to yourself. The sixth transit of the week, Uranus, begins retrograde in Gemini on Friday, September 5th at 1 degree and 27 minutes. I love the numbers here because Uranus moved into its retrograde shadow at 27 degrees and 27 minutes in Taurus on May 20th, 2025. Here on September 5th, 2025, Uranus begins retrograde in Gemini at 1 degree and 27 minutes. On November 7th, Uranus transits retrograde into Taurus. And on February 3rd, 2026, Uranus ends its retrograde, goes direct at 27 degrees and 27 minutes in Taurus. And then on May 21st, 1 year and a day after Uranus transited into its retrograde shadow, it transits out of its retrograde shadow at 1 degree 27 minutes in Gemini. So lots of 7s, 27s. But interesting how Uranus transited into its retrograde shadow on May 20th, 2025, and transits out of its retrograde shadow on May 21st, 2026. So it spends a year and a day in this same portion of the sky from 27 degrees and 27 minutes Taurus to 1 degree and 27 minutes in Gemini. That's 27 to 28, 28 to 29, 29 to 0, 0 to 1. That's 4 degrees. Exactly 4 degrees. Uranus is going forward, then backward. So what's it like 0 to 2 degrees in air signs, Libra, Aquarius, Gemini, fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius, and mutable signs, 2 of which we've already named, Gemini and Sagittarius, but also Virgo and Pisces. If you have anything between 0 and 2 degrees in any of those 8 signs, then you're getting hit right now. You're being called to go through a revolution. If those key points or planets are in Virgo or Pisces, the revolution may not feel fun. It may feel frustrating, agitating. Lean into it. Don't avoid it. Join the revolution. It's inevitable. If you have key astrological points or planets between 0 and 2 degrees in the air and fire signs, then it might feel fun to be joining this revolution. You may feel like you're being liberated in some way. Life is radically changing you, and incredible changes are occurring. Now, when it drops back into Taurus, if you have any key points or planets between 26 and 29 degrees in the 3 earth signs, Capricorn, Taurus, or Virgo, the 3 fire signs, Cancer, Scorpio, or Pisces, it may be the vibe for you. You're feeling liberated through the revolution. If you were born with key astrological points or planets between 26 and 29 degrees in Leo and Aquarius, you may feel like you're being dragged into the revolution unwillingly. But don't cling to the way things have always been. Make a radically different choice. Uranus transiting through Gemini is saying think differently. Radically different than you've thought before. Think radically different than you've thought before. See things from a unique perspective. Think outside the box. This is meant to be a mentally revitalizing period of time. Lightning striking the mind. The wake-up call. And that leads us to our final transit of the week. The full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces at 15 degrees, occurring at 11:09 a.m. Pacific Daylight Savings Time on Sunday, September 7th. Sunday, September 7th at 11:09 a.m. 11:09 a.m. at 15 degrees and 22 minutes. 15 degrees and 22 minutes. So what is in your astrological code at or around 15 degrees in, we've already named all the signs, the water signs, the earth signs, the mutable signs. Water is Cancer, Scorpio, Pisces. Earth is Capricorn, Taurus, Virgo. Mutable, in addition to Virgo and Pisces, is Gemini and Sagittarius. The full moon is a release, and it's especially a release when it's an eclipse. If you're curious to learn how the next lunar cycle is going to be affecting you, and the next lunar cycle is going to involve the new moon solar eclipse in Virgo and the full moon in Aries, I encourage you to enroll in my moon cycle classes at theweeklytransit.com. The classes are small, they're intimate. We'll look at your astrological code, at where the new moon solar eclipse and the full moon in Aries are happening in your astrological code, what planets they are connecting to, what that means, and how you can work with the energy to your benefit. I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to my Substack. I'm up to 30 subscribers, and I'm truly proud of that. I know it may not sound like a lot, but it's really cool to just see every week there's like 10 new people that subscribe to the Substack, and I'm really putting a lot of time and effort into creating this free content. And I've got another great, in my opinion, article or essay about the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, which is occurring. But before I get to that, I just really feel like the ending of this week is special. It starts with Saturn transiting back into Pisces. I want everyone listening to really take care of themselves this week and really think about the pain and suffering that is existing within their psyche. In what ways are you suffering? What can you do to acknowledge that suffering? What can you do to observe or investigate that suffering and what it means for you? And how can you show yourself compassion? Because when you can show yourself compassion through the suffering, that creates the opening to release it. And that's what this full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces is about. And there's so many openings this week between Jupiter in Cancer aligning with the North Node in Pisces, aligning with Mars in Libra, Mercury aligning with Uranus. The themes of this week are all about the conscious and unconscious mind, and the experiences that you're having this week are really attempting to bring that all to the surface so that you can find a pathway to explore what's happening within you, to find that acceptance through the understanding, appreciation, and recognizing that you are who you are, and who you are is a divine soul connected to all that is, all that was, and all that ever will be. And to find love in that frequency. The dream is ending. The pattern remains. What the Virgo Pisces eclipse cycle of 1634, 1653, 1672, and 2006, 2025, 2044 reveals about truth, control, and the architecture of belief. The moon doesn't just reflect light. It reflects the story of our past. And when it passes into shadow, that story collapses. Not because it was wrong, but because it had run its course. On September 7th, 2025, the total lunar eclipse will take place in the sign of Pisces, the same degree where a partial lunar eclipse occurred on September 7th, 2006, and in 2044, another total lunar eclipse will close this triad. Each of these lunar eclipses is accompanied by a new moon solar eclipse in Virgo. In 2006, it fell on September 22nd at the very edge of Virgo. In 2025, it arrives on September 21st. In 2044, it moves to the beginning, August 22nd, 0 degrees Virgo. But this pattern is not new. The same eclipse configuration occurred at 15 degrees Pisces in 1634, 1653, and 1672, each separated by 19-year intervals, just as our modern sequence unfolds. Between these historical triads and our current one lies a 334-year gap, a cosmic pause before the pattern resumed. This is not coincidence. It's a ritual repetition across centuries, a cosmic inspection of the Virgo-Pisces axis where belief meets proof, order meets surrender, and illusion meets discernment. We are not just witnessing eclipses. We are being initiated by a pattern that has been testing the architecture of human belief for over 4 centuries. The axis of integration, Virgo and Pisces. Virgo is the maiden, mutable earth, ruled by Mercury. She governs precision, purification, and process. She lives in the nervous system, in the schedule, in the spreadsheet. She organizes chaos into clarity. Pisces is the dream, mutable water, ruled by Jupiter and Neptune. It floats in mysticism, music, imagination, and the unseen. It governs the collective unconscious, the tide of belief that can heal or drown. This axis is not about opposition. It's about integration. And when eclipses fall across these signs, we are asked, what are you worshiping that was never real? What have you systematized that was meant to be sacred? What illusions are you still living in because the truth is inconvenient? The sacred mathematics, 15 degrees Pisces, and the collective memory vault. There's something mystical about the precision. Not just any degree of Pisces, but 15 degrees exactly. This is not the dreamy beginning of the sign or its dissolving end. This is the critical degree, the mathematical center where Pisces reveals its deepest secrets. 15 degrees Pisces falls in the second decan, where the watery depths of Pisces blend with the nurturing moon energy of Cancer. Ancient astrologers understood this as the mental-emotional nexus, the point where intuitive knowing transcends analytical thought. Here, individual consciousness dissolves into the collective memory vault. This is the degree of ancestral recall, of cellular memory, of species-wide knowing. When eclipses strike here, they don't just affect individuals. They activate the morphic field of human consciousness itself. They access the deep programming, the stories we've been telling ourselves for generations, the belief systems that feel like home, even when they imprison us. The Cancer Moon influence makes this degree particularly potent for examining how societies mother their populations. Through nurturing institutions that gradually become controlling systems. The church mothering through salvation and punishment. The state mothering through protection and surveillance. Science mothering through healing and dependency. 15 degrees Pisces asks, what have you been taught to need that you actually never needed? What collective stories are you still nurturing from that no longer nourish? The 334-year gap between eclipse cycles suggests this degree operates on deep time, accessing not just personal memory, but civilizational memory. When it awakens the echoes of every time humanity has faced this choice before. The pattern repeats. 1634, 1653, 1672. Before examining our modern crisis, we must understand what this eclipse pattern has revealed before. History is the best predictor of what celestial rhythms produce in human consciousness, especially when they strike the exact same degree across centuries. 1634. The mothering institution strikes back. The eclipse year of 1634 witnessed institutional power crushing emerging challenges with brutal force. On September 6th, one day before the eclipse, the Battle of Nördlingen ended with a decisive victory for the Imperial Army and Habsburg Spain over Protestant forces, effectively ending Swedish dominance in the 30 Years' War. The Catholic Church, humanity's longest-running mother institution, had violently reasserted its nurturing authority. Weeks earlier, on August 18th, Urbain Grandier was buried alive in Loudun, France, convicted of sorcery, a moment where the institutional mother eliminated what it deemed dangerous knowledge. The eclipse pattern's first manifestation at 15 degrees Pisces revealed how collective belief systems respond to existential threats by sacrificing the individual to preserve the collective story. The Cancer Moon influence was clear. The institution must protect its children from dangerous ideas, even if protection requires violence. 1653, when Mother abandons the house. By the second eclipse cycle, the protective facade had cracked. On April 20th, 1653, Oliver Cromwell dissolved the Rump Parliament, a complete breakdown of traditional governmental mothering. The old protective authority didn't just fail, it was swept away entirely by its own appointed guardian. By December 16th, Cromwell became Lord Protector of the Commonwealth, establishing a completely new form of institutional mothering that challenged millennia of royal authority. But this was mothering without maternal comfort, austere, militant, revolutionary. The eclipse energy at 15° Pisces had moved from violent protection to institutional abandonment and reconstruction. The collective memory was asking, what happens when the systems that promise to care for you reveal they were always caring for themselves? 1672. The simultaneous collapse. The third eclipse year brought what the Dutch called Het Rampjaar, the disaster year. A simultaneous invasion by France, England, and German bishops threatened the very existence of the Dutch Republic. On August 20th, Johan de Witt, Grand Pensionary of Holland, was brutally murdered by an angry mob. The institutional mothers were devouring each other, and their children were killing the caretakers. Yet, even in the chaos, adaptation emerged. King Charles II issued the Royal Declaration of Indulgence on March 15th, suspending religious persecution laws, institutional mothering trying to evolve under pressure. The pattern was crystallizing. Violent protection leads to abandonment, leads to cannibalistic collapse. A 3-act drama of how belief systems confront existential challenges. And at the center of each act, 15° Pisces was asking the same question across centuries. Who is really being protected here? And from what? 2006, the new mother arrives. After a 334-year pause, the eclipse pattern resumed, striking a collective memory vault with unprecedented precision. The Virgo solar eclipse of 2006 landed at 29 degrees, the anaretic degree, the final pressured gasp of a sign before it hands the reins to the next. It's a crisis degree, an edge, a signal of reckoning. That year, the world watched an inconvenient truth and was told the earth was dying and that we were to blame. Perhaps you saw it in theaters. Perhaps you left inspired. Perhaps you left terrified. Regardless, the narrative landed, and it stuck. But this wasn't just environmental messaging. This was the birth of a new mothering institution. Climate change became the new nurturing authority. Data as love, algorithms as care, carbon reduction as salvation. Science had learned to speak the emotional language of Cancer Moon, wrapping its prescriptions in maternal concerns for future generations. Just as the Human Genome Project promised the blueprint to life itself, the social networks promised global connection. 2006 marked a moment of spiritual outsourcing. Truth became something you could measure or monetize. But more importantly, caring became something institutions could do for you, to you, whether you wanted it or not. The Pisces lunar eclipse at 15 degrees was whispering even then from the deep collective memory. This story feels familiar. You've been here before. How did it end? Echoing 1634, institutional authority was crystallizing new orthodoxies. By this time, the mothering came dressed as concern rather than salvation, data rather than dogma, consensus rather than commandment. Echoing 1634, institutional authority was crystallizing new orthodoxies. But this time, the mothering came dressed as concern rather than salvation, data rather than dogma, consensus rather than commandment. 2025, the Mother Revealed. Now we arrive at the midpoint, a total lunar eclipse in Pisces on September 7th, 2025, followed by another Virgo solar eclipse, again at 29 degrees. Same axis, same crisis, same degree, but this time the veil is thinner. We've had 19 years of mothering through crisis, of institutional care that somehow always requires more control. We've been told the world will end, and yet, here we are. We've been promised safety through surveillance, health through dependency, salvation through submission. Somewhere between the AI singularity, medical absolutism, and the priesthood of peer review, people have begun to ask the Cancer moon questions that 15 degrees Pisces always provokes. Is this protection or control? Is this nurturing or vampirism? Is this love or is this need? Virgo at 29 degrees says, you're out of time. Decide what's worth believing. Pisces, eclipsed at 15 degrees, accesses the collective memory vault and asks, you've been mothered by institutions before. How well did that work out? What does the ancestral memory whisper about systems that promise to save you? This eclipse cycle is not about climate. It's about relationship. It's about the fundamental question that 15-degree Pisces has been asking across centuries. What is the difference between being cared for and being managed? Following the historical pattern, we should expect not violent reassertion as in 1633, but the kind of abandonment seen in 1653. Following the historical pattern, we should not expect violent reassertion as in 1634, but the kind of abandonment seen in 1653. The complete breakdown of institutional mothering that forces humanity to rediscover its own capacity for self-care. 2044. The orphan children build their own home. In 2044, the new moon solar eclipse arrives at 0 degrees Virgo. The maiden begins again. This time the eclipse does not warn, it initiates. The false mothers of 2006 will have been revealed. The institutional care systems questioned in 2025 will either be transformed or discarded. The collective memory activated at 15-degree Pisces will have either integrated its lessons or repeated its patterns. At 0-degree Virgo, eclipse is not interested in being mothered. It demands functionality, self-reliance, practical wisdom, earned through direct experience. If you cannot purify it yourself, release it. If you cannot prove it through living, stop preaching it. If you cannot embody it without external authority, it was never yours to begin with. This is the beginning of a new model of care, not institutional care, but community care, not professional care, but practiced care, not systematic care, but sacred care. History suggests this will not be collapse, as in 1672, but construction, the building of new forms of human organization by those who have learned to mother themselves. The collective memory speaks. The precision of 15-degree Pisces across centuries carries a message from the deepest layers of human consciousness. Every institution that promises to protect you will eventually need to control you to justify its existence. Every system that offers to care for you will eventually require your dependence to sustain itself. Every authority that claims to love you will eventually demand your compliance as proof of that love. This is not cynicism. This is pattern recognition across deep time. Gravity existed before Newton gave it a name. The planets moved before NASA put them on a map. The Earth breathed before CO2 had a public relations team. And humans cared for each other before caring became an industry. The eclipse pattern of 1634, 1653, 1672 proved this across 3 centuries of upheaval. Each time, what seemed like permanent protection dissolved. Each time, what seemed like impossible, humans caring for themselves and each other without institutional mediation, emerged from the ruins. Final reflections. The assignment of the axis. The Virgo-Pisces eclipses of 1634, 1653, 1672, and 2006, 2025, 2044 form parallel rituals of collapse, confrontation, and clarity, specifically examining humanity's relationship to institutional mothering. Each time we are invited, not told, to question which mothers truly nourish and which merely need to be needed. Examine the stories that make us feel safe but keep us small. Reclaim our capacity for self-care and community care. Remember that the collective memory knows about the cycles of protection and control. This axis is not about cleaning up your diet or refining your schedule. It is the axis of spiritual sovereignty. The recognition that you are capable of discerning truth without authorities, of caring for yourself and others without institutions, and navigating mystery without maps. Virgo says, prove it through living. Pisces says, trust what you know. Together they ask, what if the care you've been seeking has always been available, and the protection you've been offered has always been an illusion? The historical pattern shows us that every 19 years this question becomes unavoidable, and every few centuries the answer reshapes civilization itself. The 334-year gap suggests these are not just personal cycles, but species-level initiations into greater maturity. You are the eclipse. In 1634, false mothers crushed dissent with fire. In 1653, the protective facades crumbled entirely. In 1672, the systems devoured each other, and their children rose up in revolt. In 2006, new mothers arrived offering salvation through expertise. In 2025, you are questioning who benefits from your dependence. In 2044, you will either have learned to care for yourself or resigned yourself to eternal childhood. The earth does not need your guilt. She needs your reverence. The future does not need your fear. It needs your discernment. And you do not need institutional mothering. You never did. You were just taught to forget that you are capable of caring for yourself and others without permission, supervision, or professional mediation. History whispers from 15 degrees Pisces. The pattern always completes itself. The only question is whether you'll be awake to participate or still waiting for someone else to tell you what you already know. I hope this has been helpful to you. I hope you feel empowered by this message. I thank you for your presence. And if you're still here and you've enjoyed this message, like and subscribe, write a favorable review, and I'll look forward to seeing you and reconnecting with you next week. Thank you for listening to the Weekly Transit. If you're curious to learn how these transits or any other transits may be affecting you, or if you're interested in learning more about your astrological code, contact me for a reading at theweeklytransit.com. This episode was produced by me, Scott Tajarian. Music written by Ben Leinbach from Listen Deep by Amber Herzog Lyman. Wishing you all the best as you ride the planetary waves.